You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to start talking about a position group where I don't think Syracuse football is going to touch anymore, meaning I don't think they're going to look to add to this group in the spring portal window, and that's Syracuse's defensive line. Having said that, there is a lot of competition within Syracuse's defensive line. You got Murad Watson, who in my opinion is a lock to start, and outside of that, nobody is really safe along the front. It's important to note that under Elijah Robinson, the defensive coordinator for Syracuse football, they run a 4-2-5 defense, meaning 4 down defensive linemen. You got 2 guys on the interior, 2 guys on the edges. Murad Watson is an interior defensive lineman, meaning there's really only one spot up for grabs in the interior defensive line. And Syracuse has 3 choices in my mind right now. 3 leaders in the clubhouse. How about that? You got Rashard Perry, Deion Tank Wilson, and they also brought in a transfer from Marshall this offseason in Chris Thomas Jr. So Syracuse football, that's a good amount of options, and I think any one of those guys could claim the second interior defensive line spot. It's tough to say who's going to win that job right now. You also got 2 defensive ends with at least 5, perhaps even 6 players who can grab them. Think about it for a moment, all right? The players that I'm going to list to you right now, ready? Chase Simmons, Dennis Jacquez, King Joseph Edwards, David Omaperiola, Caden Brown. I'll get to the 6th one in just a moment. All 5 of those guys that I just mentioned either were a top recruit in high school, Caden Brown, King Joseph Edwards. Those were 4-star guys in high school. Recently, too, 2024, class of 2024, those guys. Or I should say, they played a good amount this past season. So they already have that experience of playing under their belt. David Omaperiola played, Chase Edmonds played, Dennis Jacquez is a veteran. That's a lot of talent for just 2 edge spots for Syracuse football along the defensive line. And that leaves the 6th name. Who am I missing? Cal transfer David Reese. David Reese, whether you want to classify him as a linebacker or an edge rusher, he's not a traditional middle linebacker. So he's going to play on the edge no matter what. And if Syracuse football is going to stick to its 4-2-5 defense, that means David Reese might just claim, in fact, I would say it's likely he claims one of the 2 starting edge spots. I wouldn't call it a lock, but I would say it's likely he does. He played at Cal. He had 11 sacks over the past 2 seasons. That leaves 5 names for 1 spot along the defensive line. I will go more in depth into each and every one of those players throughout the offseason, but this is just really to lay the groundwork out all for you. All right, because we got plenty of time. I mean, Syracuse football plays its spring game. If the Lally Foundation is accurate, they play it on April 12th. And even then, they don't play an official game until late August against Tennessee. We got plenty of time here on Locked On Syracuse to talk about each and every one of these players within these positional battles. But hopefully that lays out a solid foundation for you all to fall back on as to who to look out for in these position battles along the defense. Now let's talk about some groups where I think Syracuse football may look to add to in the spring portal window. First one up is middle linebacker. As of right now, the projected middle linebackers for Syracuse football are Derek McDonald and Anwar Sparrow. The good news with Derek McDonald and Anwar Sparrow is that they are both experienced. They have both played a lot for Syracuse football in the past. And I think McDonald, by the way, is, I wouldn't call him a lock to start, but he is pretty likely to be one of the 2 starting middle linebackers this upcoming season. But if we're being fair, it's a downgrade from what Syracuse had last season with its middle linebackers. They had Marlowe Wax, and Justin Barron. So I would not be surprised at all if Syracuse football in the spring portal tried to add at least one starting caliber middle linebacker. That leads me to defensive back for the Orange. Syracuse football has a lot of defensive backs, and only two of them are a lock to start. Duce Chestnut's going to start, like I told you all, but what safety is he going to play? Is he going to play free safety or is he going to play strong safety? And the second one is Devin Grant, who could play outside corner, nickel corner, safety. We don't know just yet, but we know that those two players are going to start. Let's talk about the outside corners, the top ones right now. You got Davian Kerr, you got Greg Delane, you got Ivan McDaniels. I think Davian Kerr is the most likely of those three to be a starting corner for the Orange as of right now in 2025 because he played at the end of last season, and I think he actually played quite well. But it's not a lock. What if Syracuse football in the spring portal adds a corner and says they want to do the Devin Grant experiment all over again where they try to make him an outside corner? Where does that leave Davian Kerr? Not a starter anymore. So that's why I wouldn't say he's a lock, but I think it's likely he will start. And outside of that, we don't know because they may look to add a corner in the spring portal window. Let's go over the safeties. Excluding Duce Chestnut, you got Barry Buxton, Demetrius Samuel, who is one of the best Syracuse football recruits in quite a while, a consensus 4-star guy, and also Brahim Long. And top nickel, excluding Devin Grant, is Jaleel Martin. Going back to what I said earlier, we're going to have a lot more clarity on who's playing where, who's starting where, once we know the situation with Devin Grant. And the spring portal window could very well determine where Devin Grant is playing and all the dominoes would fall into place. And also vice versa, right? The Syracuse staff could have a plan for what they want to do with Devin Grant and look to add in the spring portal window based on where they think Devin Grant should play in 2025. But there's going to be a lot of competition on this Syracuse football defense. And also, don't be surprised if they look to add a middle linebacker and a defensive back in the spring portal window.